You're live on YouTube.
All right, great. Good morning, everyone. We have just a quorum, so hopefully some additional committee members will join us in a bit. Just as a reminder for guests or other supervisors, holding to what we've agreed to, any comments outside the committee will be entertained during privilege of the floor. So we're not ignoring anyone during the meeting, but when it gets to privilege, then we'll open that up for comments. So I'll call the meeting to order, the Criminal Justice and Public Safety Committee meeting for November 21st. The first item is a probation agenda. We have our director with us. There's three items for consideration. The first is to enter into a contract with. Oh, I'm sorry. First mistake of the day. Yes, someone approval of the minutes of the last meeting? Okay, Supervisor Driscoll, second Supervisor McDevitt. Any discussion on those? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried. Thank you. All right, back to the probation agenda. To enter a contract with the Warren Hamilton Counties Committee for Economic Opportunity for an alternative sentencing program in the amount of $70,000 for the term 1/1/23 through 12/31/23.
Yes, good morning. That is our contract we have with Community Action for Community Service. We've contracted with them for lots of 20 years. This is the second year of a bid contract we had. So in essence, this is just a renewal.
All right. Motion to move this forward, Supervisor McDevitt, second, Supervisor Driscoll. Any questions or discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carry. Thank you. Second item is to enter into an agreement with Language Line Services for interpreting services in the amount of $4,750. Yes, sir.
Yes, this is the ongoing interpreter issue we have at times with our department. Previously, we've used people that we haven't had contracts with. I know that's not the preferred method of the county. So Language Line is a telephone-based interpreter service. We are working on an agreement with them. I've been in contact with the county attorney. Public Health also has one, but nevertheless, we also need to enter into a separate one with them. So we'll have that in place going forward should we need an interpreter in the upcoming year.
Okay. Motion move this forward, Supervisor Seaver, second. Supervisor McDevitt, any discussions or questions on this?
If I could just clarify the amount at $4,750. Yeah, because the resolution requests at 5,000.
I'm sorry, I think if I didn't change that, I will change that.
I just wanted to then the director of probation reaching out to me a number of times. I was really good in getting back to him on the final ones. I appreciate the trust.
Thank you.
Thank you. The third item is a request to transfer $15,000 from probation A3140 110 to salaries A3140 861 for retirees and hospitalization.
Right, this is.
Did we vote on Larry Klein?
I know we had a motion in a second. I thought we did.
Did we vote on language?
Yeah.
Did we vote on?
I'll take more coffee.
I don't know.
Well, it can't hurt that we had a motion in a second. It can't hurt to say all those in favor.
Aye.
Opposed? Carry. All right, go ahead. We read the third request.
Yes, the third request is to transfer 15,000 from our salary line into the retirees hospitalization. We're running low according to the report from the treasurers. I'm not sure how retirees hospitalization is calculated. That's nothing we do at the beginning. But nevertheless, we have funds on our salaries from vacant positions. So in order to make that whole by the end of the year, I'm requesting to do the transfer.
Okay, understood. Request to move this forward. Motion Supervisor McDevitt, second. Supervisor Diamond. Any further discussions or question on this? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carry. Anything else? Any
No, sir.
discussion? Thank you for being with us this morning.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
See you, Bob.
Have a good day. Next office is the Office of Emergency Services. Anne Marie is here. Anne Marie, you've got, looks like 8 requests, but I believe at least some of them, probably the last 4 we can combine. So we'll start the first one. This is a request for a new contract with the emergency vehicle upfitters to provide vehicle equipment installation at a rate of $93 per hour, not to exceed $19,000 for the year. Emery?
Yep, so that contract is for removal of or installation of any type of warning light equipment on vehicles.
All right. Motion to move this forward. Supervisor Seaver, a second. Supervisor McDevitt. Any discussion or questions on this? Supervisor Leggett.
Yes. Have we used them before?
Yes, we have. Yes. Yep, this is will be our second year contracting with them.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Second request is to extend the existing contract with the Glens Falls Fire Department for fire investigation services. Emery?
Yep, so we've had this contract with Glens Falls for quite some time now, and we would just like to continue to extend that as well for any investigations that might need to occur on any of the fires.
Motion to move this forward. Supervisor Diamond, second. Supervisor Driscoll. Any discussions or questions on this? Supervisor Seaver.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If I may ask the
Sure.
director a question. Anne Marie, with this contract, it seems to me we're seeing personnel increases across the board, benefit cost increase. You said we've had this contract for some time. Have we worked in the price of keeping up to par with that? Or has it been the same amount for as long as you remember?
It's been the same amount for as long as I remember, and a lot of the cost is built based on the number of fires that we have and the number of fires that need to be investigated. So it kind of fluctuates each year. It really is hard to kind of pinpoint it. So some years will be close to what we budgeted. Another years will be more than that. It all depends on what's happening out there for incidents.
I just want to make sure we're compensating them to what they need to cover their costs
Yep.
if it's all rising, particularly in a year where we're looking at 8 to 10% COLA increases and other federal costs and state costs. So it's nice of them to keep it steady for as long as they have.
Yeah, I agree.
Any other questions? Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. The third item is a requested transfer of funds from A 1990-469, which is contingent account, other payments, contributions to A 3410-861, the fire prevention and control retirees hospitalization in the amount of $2,500 and $25.25 rather. Emery?
Yep, so, kind of in the same boat, not being able to kind of figure these into the budgets from the beginning. This, I believe, came from a late hire in 2022. So we were just looking to be able to see if we can get some funding from the contingency fund to cover that.
Motion by Supervisor Driscoll, second. Supervisor Diamond, any discussions or questions on this? Favor?
Aye.
I'm gonna check to see if we even have that amount of money in the contingent account. If not, it would be the general fund unappropriated surplus, so if you can just give me a second, please. Don't believe we have that amount.
Bottom of the barrel.
Supervisor Seaver?
No, that's okay. I'll take up the time. While she's looking into that, is there a way maybe we could throw a question over to finance or budget to talk a little bit about why in almost every one of our departments, we've been noticing these increases at the end of the year for retirees and for health insurance. And I don't know if it's like Anne Marie said, just new employees coming on, or if there's a change, but being self-insured and just
Okay.
seeing this trend with retirees, I'm wondering why.
Tammy, do you know the answer to that?
Well, we've had this happen before,
Yeah.
so when we go into the budget process, we budget based upon in current elections, I think, or the amount of employees we have. And the departments don't have the opportunity to, we don't change those numbers because we know that there's gonna be vacancies or whatever. So in the past, what we've done is at the end of the year, I go through and before we close the books, I'll go through and I'll run a report of all of the funding that we have left in all of these codes. And I'll do an out of department transfer. So we know that for the smaller departments without a lot of employees, one change. All it takes is one change. With probation, I believe that there was a vacancy. So that's why there was money in the 110 code to move. With other departments like Everest, it's not a large department. One change in that is gonna create an out of budget. So in the past, we haven't typically handled those throughout the year. We've handled them at year end with a county-wide transfer. But that's why you're seeing those. And we started to see those last month, which makes sense. As you get closer to the end of the year, right? The money is not available, but I think there is less than $1,000 right now in the contingent account. I don't think they've made transfers from last month. So I don't know if you want to leave it that way, and then if there's not enough funding, then it'll be unappropriated fund balance. That's the only other bucket to pull out.
That's the option. All right, well, we have a motion, we have a second. You heard Tammy's explanation, so.
I just have one
Further,
question.
yes, go ahead.
So what you're saying, Tammy, is that in a given year, there could be additional money needed, but there could also be in a department, money going back into the budget.
So at the end of the year, typically there's always a balance, and I'll give you a great
Okay.
example. Health services has a lot of vacant positions. Those vacant positions have hospitalization scheduled against that fringe benefit. So they're going to probably have an excess in money scheduled in their hospitalization account. Whereas OES doesn't have a probation date. So that,
Thanks.
and typically we would move that around.
Chairman?
Yes. Go ahead.
Well, perhaps it should include unappropriated fund balance in this resolution, or it'll get kicked back by the treasurer's office, because that's not authorized to come out of there.
And we can verify that by the finance meeting on the 1st, if that's.
Oh, okay.
They can also amend their motion and just take it right from the general fund if they wanted to. Right.
Is there a preference? We had a motion in the second. Leave it as it is or amend it from the general fund? Can I ask for an amendment?
I just have one more question. So
Okay.
if we're looking at $500 and we only have half of that amount. So we take all of it out of the general fund, but then the general fund gets that,
Any monies remaining from any of the other accounts
It
will
goes
fall
back
back
to-
to the
okay,
general
okay.
fund at the end of the year.
that's
That
what I
is correct.
thought. I just wanted to make sure.
I think that was your question.
Yep, yes, it is.
Okay, so we had a motion to second. Do those two supervisors agree with the amendment? Sure. As amended from the general fund? Okay. Any further discussion or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Emery, you've got items 4 through 8 are all personnel items. 4, 5, and 6 are requesting to fill deputy EMS coordinator positions, all at the same salary at $82,33. Can I ask that we take those 3 first? And give a quick explanation. Want to explain anything on those 3?
Yep. All right, so Rachel and Jack, I placed on the table organizational charts. I didn't get a chance to give you guys that, just so you have an idea. There's not much change in the chart from 2022 to 2023, but just kind of gives you an idea where some of these are going to be landing. Not so much on the EMS coordinator side, but as we move forward into 2023, there are 2 changes there. So if we're looking at items 4, 5, and 6, right now, what we have is a request to fill a position for deputy EMS coordinator. The person who was in this position took the position of actual EMS coordinator, and that was Patrick Mellon. So he's currently our EMS coordinator, which left his position open. And we also had a resignation for our second EMS deputy, and that resignation will take effect December 16th. So we have 2 positions open. Right now, we're going to take our third deputy and move him up to the first deputy spot. So we needed an intent to fill for that spot. Then I need an intent to fill for the vacancy for EMS two. Deputy, for EMS two, and now, EMS three will be open when we move that person up to fill the first deputy spot. So in essence, we will just have two positions open, for EMS deputy.
All right, just to clarify, none of these are newly created positions.
No, these are current positions.
Okay.
Correct.
All right, so if we can have a motion to move items 4, 5, and 6.
Mr. Driscoll made the motion, so you just need a second.
Oh, I didn't see your hand. All right. Second, Supervisor McDevitt, any discussions, questions? All those in favor? Opposed, carried. Item 7 is a request to fill the position of Deputy Director of an Emergency Services, grade 11, at an annual salary of $56,475.
Yep, so this position was created through the budget process and it will be effective January 1st.
All right, motion to move this forward. Supervisor Diamond. Second,
I'll second, but I have questions.
all right, second by Supervisor Seaver, and go ahead with the question.
Thank you. I have a few questions on this. Was this funded in the 2023 budget?
It is funded, yes.
And as is, just jumping ahead before I have to ask that, the Assistant Emergency Services Coordinator?
Yes.
And is now typically the appropriate time before we're even into 2023 to have this? I mean, I know we voted on the budget, but the budget's not in place till
Yep.
January.
Yes, so back in September, when we had our committee meeting, I did present the personnel requests with our budget back in September.
I have one more question, but can
Go
I
ahead.
just confirm with the budget officer? Like this is what you want to see happen, the position created now, or it go through the process now? And then that it seems like quite the recreation from office specialist to assistant emergency coordinator and then to emergency services deputy director. You have an assistant emergency. I guess I'm not understanding the flow chart really well because the assistant emergency services coordinator. Are you saying? Who's the main coordinator? Because he reports below the assistant emergency coordinator.
So the main coordinator will be the emergency services deputy director. The emergency services coordinator position is left vacant and unfunded.
Why isn't that on your organizational chart?
I
vacant and unfunded.
just put the ones that we're filling on the chart for now. It is just a draft chart.
How many more are unfunded or vacant in your organizational chart?
The other one would be the office specialist.
The office specialist remained. Unfunded,
Correct.
and what was the other one? Unfunded is the emergency services coordinator?
Yes,
And vacant,
Yes.
And that would then go to above the assistant emergency coordinator,
yes,
and then that person reports to emergency services deputy director?
yes.
We've seen a lot of growth in this department. Thank you.
Any other questions, Supervisor Diamond?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was looking at the 2023 budget under general civil defense. And it looks like, and if you go to the salary chart in the back of the budget, it looks like the assistant emergency services coordinator position was not a request by you. It looked like it was a request by the budget officer, or it was recommended by the budget officer, and it's put in the tentative budget. Also, if you look at that, it's in the back part of the budget. It gives you a flow chart of department requests, budget officer request, and budget. It also looks like to me, if I'm reading it correctly, that there was the deputy director of emergency services was not funded, was not a request of yours. However, it was funded. Can you tell me how much more money it's going to cost your department to have these two new positions compared to 2022?
I can get that figure for you. It's not going to be a huge leap. Because currently, right now, I believe our emergency services coordinator is at, I want to say 57, so she might be just a little bit under the office assistant right now.
I come up with approximately 40,000 more.
I don't
Could you
know.
explain the need for these two new positions?
Sure, the need for the deputy director would be to have someone who would be my direct backup if I was not there. Someone who would fill in for on-call as well. So there is definitely a need to have that availability in the department.
And we've never had that before.
Just the emergency services coordinator.
Any other position?
The other position, currently right now, that position is going to be filled by our office specialist, who has actually been doing the actual work for that position for the last 2 to 3 years.
Okay, so I came up with approximately 39,640 more. Thank you.
Any other questions for Anne Marie? We had go ahead, Supervisor Seaver.
I'm sorry, and just looking at the backups on this, I see in your rationale. Deputy, I'm trying to line up the job descriptions. What ones am I'm missing some, right? Oh, and there's. There would be deputy director of emergency services. Who's, I'm looking at your chart. Deputy Director of Emergency Services. Oh, okay, it's flipped. So the position title is Deputy Director. And then Assistant Emergency Services. Anne Marie, I really would like to support these, but I'm struggling. And I hope by the time the full board comes around, I'll be a little more comfortable and how we went. I was so familiar with the department for many, many years. And I just, it just seems like a substantial amount of growth. And I'm not hearing, it's like, what are the add-on costs to all of this other than salary? Is everybody getting a car, uniforms or something that your department more than most, certainly utilize? There's a lot of training involved. There's just so much that goes. Are you increasing your other line items? Have they increased?
Nope, we are not looking for any additional vehicles. We're just getting a new Tahoe. And that's just a fire coordinator's vehicle. So no, we're not doing any additional vehicles.
How do you support like the training and the growth and all the other, the benefits, everything else that goes with growing?
Most of the training would come from New York State Department of Homeland Security, which is free training as well. So even if we go out to a risk and need for any of that training, that's also some training as well.
I'll support that committee and then see what else.
Supervisor Leggett.
Thank you. If you look at the 2022 organizational chart and the 2023 organizational chart, if my counting is correct, there's 13 positions on each one of those. The only thing that has really changed is that office specialist jumps up a tier to serve under the director and the deputy director before you hit the others. But if you look at the fire coordinator, EMS coordinator, and the hazmat coordinator, those all stay the same. And basically, the individuals that are currently the service coordinator and the office specialist are being retitled. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So what's being done? Retitling of 2 existing positions.
Supervisor Seaver.
Because I don't want to drag this out. But there are 2 then additional unfunded vacant positions in the organizational chart that you don't see here that are in the budget. So that brings us to 15. If she finds money in her budget or through grant or whatever, she can fill those. And then the other thing is that one of the big, we don't have the issue anymore, Anne Marie, with you being the director, but I find it hard is the office specialist position. That clerical support has always been like for grant writing and support and meeting all the deadlines and assisting all the different positions, such a critical piece. And I'm sure they'll still be doing some of it, but to me, to take away such an important clerical aspect, Just gives me concern. That's all.
Yeah, we will definitely be looking at that as we get into the new year to see if it's something we need to ask to, for funding to put back into the department. So that is definitely something that we will be watching, yes. Mhm. Yep.
Any other questions for Emery on this? We broached over into item 8 as well. So we had a motion for item 7. Is there interest in combining 7 and 8? in one motion? No, all right.
Sure, there is. That's fine. I'll make the motion.
Amend the motion.
Yeah, if they're. done.
All right. Supervisor Diamond, did you make the motion for item 7 originally?
Yeah, I did, yes.
Okay, are you interested in amending this to? include
Sure, we can include
7 and 8?
8, 7, and 8, yeah.
Okay, thank you. And it was a second. Supervisor Seaver, you were the second.
My question procedurally on this is then when they go to the full board, do they go as a combined resolution?
They don't go to the board. This is just to fill the positions.
Then no, that's fine. I don't care then.
Okay. Any other discussion, questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carry.
Opposed,
Opposed?
I'm opposed.
You have 3, was it 3 and 4 favor, 1 opposed?
I'm
No,
for.
I'm opposed.
All right, let me see,
Sorry.
let me show of hands. All those in favor? 3. Opposed? 2,
It fails because
and motion fails for 7 and 8. Emery, there's one discussion item, which is a referral from the ARPA Advisory Committee regarding the Office of Emergency Services request for funding in the amount of $3,146 to cover the costs of purchasing COVID-19 personal protection equipment.
Yes, so that cost actually occurred last year in 2022. We were tasked with ordering supplies for the entire employee and staff for Warren County. And at that point, we were able to cover some of that, but there was the thought behind it that we could ask for the money back from the ARPA committee.
We need a motion on this. Say so to cover that. Yeah, why don't we make that item 9?
Right, would you like, do you want just to bring explanation why it's here from ARPA? Or,
I do. You know, I was just about to ask if
You have it?
yeah, we do.
Hey, go right ahead.
So ARPA wasn't even 10/14/22. That must be a different date, but if it was at the onset of COVID, we didn't even have an ARPA committee then. So I'm sure as time went on, we were all looking at ways that we could effectively expend ARPA dollars. When we went out to the community, we're trying to provide support to all of those applications and coming in after the deadline and wanting to support them to the best of our ability. It was determined by the ARPA committee that this is an immediate expense directly related only to county employees and should be the responsibility of the county. So if this request is to look for reimbursement from ARPA was opposed to that. If this request was to have ARPA pay for it, they were still opposed to it. They referred it back here asking for the county to support our county employees and provide them out of taxpayer dollars. And of course, we had so many opportunities to apply for different federal reimbursement during COVID that should be a direct cost from the county.
All right. Any other discussions on this?
Should we take it off of the bill pending?
We won't,
Has it already been paid? I'm sorry, Mr.
I
Chairman.
don't know. Go ahead.
Has it already been paid out of the emergency services budget?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Then I would make a request to remove that from the pending items. As a committee member, please. If there's no objection.
No objection.
Thank you.
All right. Emery, anything else?
Nope, that's it.
Okay. You would, regarding item 7 and 8, we'll have another meeting, obviously, in December.
No.
No other meeting before January?
Before January.
Supervisor McDevitt.
What are the implications of not taking care of?
Well, it won't be in place for January, obviously. All right, Amy, thank you. See, the undersheriff is here, sheriffs,
Mr. Chairman,
Supervisor Diamond.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Approximately 3 meetings ago, I brought up a topic to help fund some vests along with some tasers. With, at that time, we were talking about funding it with the sheriff's department. And I mentioned, and we talked about it in great detail, about helping the city along with Bolton Landing because they have policing agencies. Also, I believe it was approved by this committee. However, it was left up to the county attorney to make a determination on how that funding would take place. I haven't heard back. I wonder if the county attorney has the chance to address that funding that we talked about 3 meetings ago.
I understand, in reference to the, did you say body worn cameras and tasers? and-
Yes, yeah. At the same time, we were talking about it
Right.
with the sheriff, so we amended, or actually, we amended the resolution to include the city of Glens Falls and Bolton Landing.
My understanding is Glens Falls has a body worn camera program
They do.
in place.
Yeah.
So there was no need to
Well, there's
start
a-
that.
I have a written request here from the chief of police that he'd like to have that funding come from the county along with Bolton Landing.
Did we all receive that or?
I think the budget officer asked for the copy of that, and I do have it. I'm more than willing to allow you to make some copies and distribute it if you'd like.
Yeah, I mean, I don't object to it. I'm just not familiar with that
Sure.
one document.
We can, if it's it moves the meeting along a little faster, we can certainly talk about it at the next meeting, but I can give you a copy of his request. And
All right, that would be appreciated. I'll ask the county attorney, do you have any response?
Sure, and I apologize to the supervisor from Glens Falls. I should have reached out to you directly and spoken to you directly, and I did not in the course of other things, which is my fault, and I apologize to you for that. It's my recollection that when the resolution went through, it went through. Part of the legal issue is comes back on the gift and loan clause and the ability of the county to provide a gift of funding to any other entity to include a municipality. Glens Falls could, if they chose, piggyback off of our contract. They could do that for any county contract under purchasing policy. But that doesn't mean that the county would be paying for the services or the products under the contract. They would be getting the benefit of what the county bargained for under any particular contract. And this one contract is an open contract through Sourcewell, which the city could directly engage in with as well. But because of the gift and loan clause in the Constitution, the county is not in a position to pay for another municipality's stuff, for lack of a more artful term. So the county could not pay for tasers or body cameras out of pocket for another municipality with a police force in that county.
so basically you're saying the county can't help fund these particular items in the Glens Falls Police Department.
County cannot use their funds, their revenue that they've generated to pay for expenses for municipality.
So can you explain to me the difference between The county funding recreational use in the city of Glens Falls versus the equipment purchase.
Off the top of my head, no, I would have to go through and look at cities are in that recreational contract, which I'm not familiar with off the top of my head. I don't believe the supervisor is referring to the ARPA money that was recently.
No, they've been funding the county's been funding for many, many years now, several recreation venues in the city of Glens Falls because they become part of the county use for county families.
Well, you kind of just answered the question for me then, because then there's quid pro quo, there's an exchange that's occurring, so it's not a gift. The county, it sounds like that particular contract is structured in such a way as the county is receiving a benefit for that funding. And the city's receiving a benefit for that funding as well, although the issue is really. There's no prohibition on someone receiving the gift. The prohibition under the Constitution is the giving of the gift. So by the same degree, I don't want to make up an example, but the city of Glens Falls could not give money to a private park unless that private park was opening itself up to the city of Glens Falls residents as part of the condition of receiving that money. Then it wouldn't be classified as a gift under the Constitution. So it sounds like here, for recreation purposes, that's what you have. I don't see where that exchange of benefits occurs with the example of body cameras, tasers. In that case, it feels like it's more of a gift. I don't even want to call it a grant because the county can't grant funds. It's a gift because it's going to the city, would be going to the city of Glens Falls for their benefit and their use. And there's nothing that's off the top of my head I can identify as a benefit coming back to the county.
Well, I would say that we're providing county residents updated and body worn cameras in body worn armor, along with tasers for their own personal protection. That would be my argument when they come into the city of Glens Falls. We have to provide residents of Warren County public safety protection.
I don't, and I can go back and look at that.
Okay.
Example, but I don't, and I'll follow up with you offline directly because I owe you that, and I apologize for not doing that earlier.
Okay.
I don't believe that's going to hit the mark under that constitutional restriction.
But you'll follow up with.
I will not.
Okay, thank you.
Supervisor Seaver.
Thank you. County Attorney Ellman, can I direct
Yeah,
the question?
go ahead.
Chairman? I would like some of this discussion, and maybe we just need to allot more time at our next meeting to talk about this publicly, because I do think the public will have questions, and I think following up offline is great. But at the same point in time, I immediately am thinking of half a dozen examples where the county does provide revenue other municipalities, or like we just mentioned, to some private or some not-for-profits. I mean, just looking alone at the county administrators and the county, the clerk's line in the budget and many of these grants. I know you just said we don't award grants, but we do, or funding for many different things. One of my questions was about the recreation, but I also am thinking about decades ago being at the DA's office and having a crime victim from Chestertown, having a crime victim from Bolton, and they were in the city of Glens Falls and were victimized. And that is a county, while Glens Falls is responding to that, to me, there would be a huge county benefit to know that there would be body cameras and other police equipment and resources available to them to better respond to the needs of crime victims, not only throughout our entire county, but this is also an issue when we have tourists come to town and we do have crime. You know, sadly, we are seeing that, and we're depending on our police entities, not just our sheriff's department, but our Glens Falls PD, our Bolton PD, and other law enforcement related entities. So to me, you know, this seems a little strange. I'm sitting on a committee with 4 Glens Falls supervisors, And you're hearing from a Queensberry representative, an advocacy effort to help support these costs. But you're hearing that because we neighbor Glens Falls, but even if I lived in the very northern points in Warren County, I would be making this argument because Glens Falls has the hub of the attractions. It has the hub of the social services for better or for worse. And it provides services that we all need and offer our residents. So I'm troubled by the fact that we wouldn't be able to assist with some of that funding. I don't know if an MOU needs to be done. I don't know if it's in the technicalities of some different line items and where we're paying and providing funds to other places. Right off the bat, I'm thinking about occupancy tax above and beyond the local law that we have in place that go to the towns, and the proposal to even more go to towns. Perhaps, really looking at what those increase of calls are around tourism season. There must be a way to be able to help our partners in the city, particularly as their costs are rising astronomically as well. So I'd like to see this kept on the agenda and look at us as a full county helping each other, because as county, I know we all represent our communities, and you've got a committee full of Glens Falls residents. I'm sure they all feel as passionately as I do about helping each other.
Supervisor Driscoll.
Thank you, Chairman. I just wanted to follow up on the comments previously. Three largest employers are located in the city of Glens Falls. I've often joked that a nurse from Warrensburg is one of my constituents because the hospital falls within the 5th Ward. I've said that a mill worker from Brant Lake is part of my constituents because Supervisor Diamond and I share the property of Finch Paper. And CWI, I think, is the number 3 employer, which employs people throughout who live throughout the county and elsewhere. So again, I think that let's look at a strategy for making it right. I don't get a maybe legally a gift now, but let's put our heads together and try to find a way to make this happen. If not this month, next month, but in the immediate future.
Okay, obviously more discussion. Supervisor Bramer.
Right, I won't belabor the point. Of course, I want to help our neighbors in my community in Glens Falls, but also in Bolton. When my colleague here said something about the tourism season, certainly Bolton, I'm sure, sees an increase in need for their Bolton Police Department. I just want to clarify on the record, we already as a committee passed a resolution including money for Glens Falls body worn cameras, and that was not put forward to the full board yet.
That's
If
correct.
that wasn't done, I will make a motion to do it again, but I think we've already included the money. I think it was $400,000 was the amendment that was originally made a few months ago.
That's my recollection.
So if I know the sheriff's office works closely with GFPD, but if we need a formal MOU between GFPD and Bolton, I would ask that the agency start working on that.
Okay, obviously, we've asked the county attorney to do,
Yeah, nobody should start working on that yet, because
Right.
I'm not sure legally you can provide the funding. Yeah. Don't believe you can provide the county dollars to Glens Falls or to Bolton for the purposes of body worn cameras and tasers. I will certainly look at it and certainly understand the statements that the supervisors have made here today. May there be some other creative ways to avoid that gift and loan constitutional ban? Maybe. But what we're talking about today and what this committee is talking about today, and the resolution that was proposed a number of months ago, was to take county tax dollars and reallocate them to the city of Glens Falls. So the city of Glens Falls could purchase body worn cameras, or in the alternative, have the county include Glens Falls in their county contract and pay for a larger scope of services that would include Glens Falls. I think both of those are problematic. May there be some other sources and other expenses that might be able to be worked out. I'm more than happy to talk through the creative ideas that this committee, this supervisor, or those municipalities have.
So we've asked the county attorney for much more research on this and come back to the committee. The only thing that I would add and ask, and I completely support Glens Falls PD. But is there precedent setting? Take away what the item request is. What if the request was for a motor vehicle? If it was for another agency anywhere in the county, and they can point back and say, well, wait a minute, let's look at this. Here's the amount of money you provided for this situation. I can make a good argument for this. So I would just ask, look at, obviously, we're going to research this, but precedent setting for other items and other costs that could arrive as well. Supervisor Bramer.
Just one more thing. So I understand what you're saying about the precedent. I do think that the body worn cameras and other police equipment is something that's a little bit different, especially when we're considering that we work through our county prosecutor's office and the public defender's office using that exact evidence. I don't think it stops just because you enter Glens Falls. I think all of our law enforcement agencies, it's important that they have that available to them
I understand.
for the county then to use either as evidence or as, exculpatory evidence.
On the surface, it sounds like a very reasonable approach. We just asked to look deeper into it. What would we say to we've got an enormous state police presence. What we would say to the Queensbury office, Chester office, if they said, hey, there's not enough money to go around, we need this, and they came to us. So I just leave these questions out there. Supervisor Seaver.
That's a really good question, Chairman. And I think that what you see obviously in the state police barracks, right, is they're funded by New York State tax dollars. But what we're seeing in Warren County, and believe me, I was opposed to it for years. I think being on this board for as many years as I have been has softened my view on it, but maybe it's time then, I don't live in Glens Falls, so I don't know how they feel about merging and talking about working in the police department. I don't know. These supervisors would know. Or Bolton PD, or we hear about another station in Lake George, but we're Warren County. So I don't know. I mean, maybe it's time to start talking about if we're not looking at combining all into one big sheriff's office with outstations. Maybe what we need to start talking about is how to support the Bolton, the Chester, the Glens Falls PDs within Warren County. And that's certainly been done in other counties, leaving those intact, but providing financial support. So I would just ask to our county attorney, as he's researching this, that be at the forefront of his mind, because it is a topic that I have no doubt is going to continue to come back up. And it's going to be really interesting to see how those demographics has changed. They've changed from a decade ago or 5 years ago to now. So
We agree. All right. We'll move on. Under Sheriff. There's just one item on the agenda. This is to enter into an agreement with Warren Tire Service Center for routine maintenance of sheriff's office fleet vehicles.
Morning, thank you. Yes, that's, we have put it out to bid, or purchasing has put this out to bid. We had 2 responses. And we looked at the contracts carefully. And we went with Warren Tire. We asked to go with Warren Tire.
Motion to move this request forward. Supervisor Diamond, second. Supervisor McDevitt. Any discussions or questions on this? Supervisor Seaver.
it's sort of related to this, so just a little latitude with it, if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
Okay, may I ask Under Sheriff?
Sure.
Under Sheriff, I noticed a couple meetings ago that we did the resolutions for the school resource officers. And I also heard in one of our committee meetings last month about the cost of gas and, you know, the request, I think it was like $700,000. I don't know. There's a large amount of money, a request to go to the sheriff's office for gasoline. $175,000. When we hire the school resource officers, or when you hire them, it's my understanding, some of them are different salaries depending on whatever school, based on what I saw. But do we cover the cost of like the car, the uniform, the gas, or is that all factored into what the schools are reimbursing the county for that?
They're not reimbursing for a vehicle. The only vehicle that I know of right now runs from Chestertown to Johnsburg. And I think I know our full-time officer in Queensbury and our part-time officer in Queensbury, they drive their own vehicles.
Oh, they do. And Luzerne?
Luzerne, they drive their own.
Okay. So
I think the only car that runs is from Chestertown to Johnsburg. That would be the only, and then every once in a while, you'll have a school resource, a school resource officer take a car. And that is more for an event,
Okay,
but usually we don't have a gas
Okay.
bill for that.
or a car looking to.
There's not a
purchase
car,
for
it's a
that.
spare car that runs from Chestertown over.
Is there any reimbursement from Chestertown and Johnsburg? Is that like a full-time car dedicated to that SRO?
It is not,
Okay. So they don't use it full-time.
no.
All right, we had a motion and a second on the request for Warren Tire Service Center for the year. Any discussions or questions on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Under Sheriff, thank you.
I have a
Question? Go ahead. All right, hang on one second. Go ahead.
Thanks. First of all, thank you for providing the entire document for us to look at for this. That was, no, seriously, very helpful and I appreciate it. That gives us a lot of information to make good votes on. The second one I wanted to bring up to you with the permission of this committee. Our NACO NISAC meeting is on the first, I think, before personnel, and I neglected last month to include the short-term rental resolution that NISAC passed unanimously, which we're aware of, with respect to changes in the ability for a sex offender to own, operate, or notice to the sheriff's office and notice to the sheriff's office if in fact they are staying in a short-term rental. So what I would love to see is if I could put that on the agenda for NACO NISAC. I know I apologized to you last month. I forgot to do that. But I really was very proud of our criminal justice community. And I wanted to thank publicly all of your efforts in helping me understand the topic a little bit better. I know you've had many inquiries from some residents in Queensbury about it as well. And I hope I mentioned to our county attorney and assistant county attorney that I hope that we continue this dialogue about how we can make it safer and more accessible in Warren County while we're still tackling the statewide issue that hopefully is going to be addressed this year by our legislature.
We will here in Warren County for sure.
That would be great. And I know we still need a meeting on that, but if this committee wouldn't mind that support over on Thursday with Danko, and I'll throw that a resolution on there.
Absolutely.
Okay, but really, thank you, Under Sheriff, for taking that time with me. It took a little bit for me to understand all the moving parts. Thank you.
Thank you, Under Sheriff. Appreciate it. All right, the last office on the agenda today is the Public Defender's Office. There's two requests. The first is notice of intent to fill a vacant position, which is the Assistant Public Defender 9. Greg?
Thank you, Honorable Chairman, honorable committee members. I'm here seeking a request to notice to fill a vacancy. Unfortunately, losing a assistant public defender who has tendered their resignation effective December 31st. And this position has a salary base of 77,708. It is 100% ILS funded. I'd like to get a jump and hopefully a replacement, and hence that is why we're here today seeking permission to fill this vacancy.
All right. Has this been vacant for some time, this position?
Now, the vacancy is effective December 31st.
Oh.
Currently,
Okay. All right. Supervisor Brandt, is that a motion to move it
Yeah.
forward? Okay, second. Supervisor Diamond. Discussions, questions? Supervisor Seaver.
Thank you. Public Defender Canali, I mean.
Yep, go ahead.
Well, can you just make sure an exit interview is provided to your assistant public defender who is leaving? I know sometimes in the DA's and the public defender's office, because they're appointed, maybe they slip through the cracks or, but there is an excellent opportunity for an exit interview, and hopefully we'll be provided with some information from that. But it allows us to, all of us to reflect on our practices, and they can certainly deny it, but
I will
They might want it.
absolutely make sure that gets done. And I'll forward that to you.
Supervisor Driscoll.
Thank you, Chairman, if I could.
Sure, go ahead.
About a week or so ago, excuse me, Greg, I read an article in the Post Star about, I think it was directed towards the district attorney's office over in Washington County. And the increase in mandates and how that plays into a lot of additional responsibilities and time for both DAs, but also public defenders' offices. Do you see that as being something that could possibly go forward as far unless laws are repealed or changed? Are you saying that there's additional responsibilities that your office could? I know you haven't been in for that long a period of time, but can you talk about that?
Well, I think there's a lot of changes occurring in the criminal justice system, especially in Albany, in regards to procedural and discovery matters. And that's creating a man-hour burden on both the prosecution and defense and on law enforcement. We're talking about body cams, and that's creating an enormous log on discovery procedures, storing, transferring these body cam footages, having to analyze these footages, having to store these footages. The good news is the body cam does expedite the resolution of criminal cases. Both the defense and prosecution applaud the body cam initiative because it gives a much clearer presentation of the strength or weakness of a particular case, which oftentimes facilitates a much sooner resolution of the case. So if you're able to show an accused a body cam which conclusively establishes the elements of the charge of which they face, they're more apt to be open to a more quick resolution as opposed to demanding a trial, which would be very costly and time consuming. So initially, there is an additional burden, both in man hours and technology, as a result of the procedures that are changing. Bail reform is another thing. You're getting an enormous amount of complexity in bail reform. Arguments need to be made to conform to the new statutory requirements. That requires more time to study the statutes, the elements, to present them to the courts. They're changing, and they're always up to change. Yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Supervisor Bramer?
I know that you have been going through a lot, and with some of the people resigning, it is a little disturbing. I'm hoping that the salary increases are helping.
I was shocked, to tell you the truth, that I'm going to do more exploration in this, but I approached an attorney who does a lot of assigned counsel work. And I said, would you be interested in working for the Warren County Public Defender's Office? And they said, what does it pay? And I said, $73,000 for starting out. And they said, oh, I would need much more than that. I said, well, what do you practice? And he said, I practice criminal law and family law. I know from my own experience, when I was a young attorney starting out in this area, on my own practice, that would have been a very good year for me to make $70,000 net. You know, you have your overhead, your staff, your library costs, your subscription costs, bar dues, and most importantly, your labor costs for your secretary. A lot of lawyers are not using offices anymore, which is hard for an old timer such as myself to understand, that people don't hang a shingle out anymore. And I go, where do you see your clients? And they said Starbucks, which I question the propriety of that as well. But even so, $70,000 in this area would seem to be an excellent salary for lawyers, young lawyers with 3 to 4 or 5 years of experience. So I don't understand what the problem is. I did talk to people at Albany Law School, trying to initiate programs there, and they were quick to tell us to include in any job descriptions the idea of flexibility, flex time, because that's what young people are demanding now. So we're exploring better ways to draw people in. I still am very much convinced that the loan forgiveness program is a huge plus for young lawyers. And I just don't think that people, this lawyer happens to be leaving to go out on their own. And under my breath, I thought to myself, I give them support if you want to be negative. I thought, you're leaving a pretty good job, and I've been out there, and it's not easy, and well, good luck to you, but sometimes people gotta see for themselves how green the grass is on this side of the fence. So I think we're very competitive, the salaries, and I thank the board for that. I think it's just a matter of, it's up to me to get that message out there, young lawyers. And with that loan forgiveness program, that's like a signing bonus of anywhere between $150,000 to $200,000. Convince these young lawyers that their student loans will be forgiven after a 10-year service.
Any other questions for Greg? Supervisor Seaver?
Just at that plug, that wonderful job incisiveness that you just put out there to the public. Public service loan forgiveness is available for all of our public employees. We should encourage people to come apply to Warren County across the board. That's a good point.
Supervisor Bramer, have something?
Well, I don't know. I know we're running short on time. I would have asked to go into executive session and just talk about some of the new employees and maybe this particular person, but I can ask Greg offline.
Okay. All right, we have a motion and we had a second on this request. We had our discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. The last item is a request for a contract with Westlaw. We talked about this last month. The county attorney asked you to go back and do a little research, see if other county agencies could participate in this. So what have you found?
Well, I would like to thank the county attorney because we were able to open up negotiations with Thompson Reuters, and they indicated and told them what we were looking for. We did find that, much to our surprise, very few departments, absolutely none, actually use a Westlaw contract. The Warren County District Attorney's Office has their legal research subscriptions provided to them by the state. This, of course, is 100% ILS funded for our department as well. So this did not include any Warren County taxpayer money. It also may inure to the benefit of the taxpayers, or at least to the state taxpayers, in that this subscription includes certain texts that we ordinarily buy hard copies of, which we no longer have to buy hard copies of, such as Peter Gersten's things on DWI, Munger on criminal procedure law. These things now are available. All West publishing texts and treatises are now available in this contract. However, thanks to the input of the county attorney, they did assure us, Westlaw indicated that if any department, including the public, or including the county attorney's office or any other department, wanted to join the subscription, they would renegotiate the contract downward on a per user basis. So they did say you won't be locked into this if anybody else wants to climb on board.
All right, thank you. Motion to move this request forward. Supervisor Diamond, second. Supervisor Driscoll. Question, Supervisor Bramer?
I do have a question, but first, I find it pretty ironic that the state is able to pay for our legal research in the DA's office, but we can't pay for city expenses related to criminal justice. But in any event, I thought that is there not a contract with Westlaw through the county attorney's office?
No.
No, we're just using Lexis. Okay.
Supervisor Leggett.
Thank you. On page 4 here, that lists all of the modules there that are coming with it. And is that a la carte or is that part of the full package? Do you get to choose what you want? Just a
information. collection.
Yeah, you get to choose.
Any other questions? All right, all in favor?
I,
Opposed? Carry. Move to privilege of the floor. Any of our committee members? Any of our other supervisors? Yes. Seeing none. Greg, thank you very much for being here. I would extend my thanks for not going to have another meeting before the end of the year. Not till January. So I extend my thanks to each committee member for your participation all year. We did get a lot of business done. And I wish you and your families a very healthy and happy Thanksgiving and Christmas season. With that, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn. Supervisor Diamond, second. Supervisor Driscoll on the question.
And on the
Supervisor Seaver.
discussion part of the motion to adjourn, I just wanted to thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's your first year chairing criminal justice and public safety, and I appreciate how you have followed Robert's rules, been so respectful, afforded all of us the opportunity to speak and provided information ahead of time. It's very refreshing, and I certainly wanted to say thank you on behalf of this Queensberry.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Oh, we're adjourned.